Guys, it's Easter evening here. We are at the Southwick National Track, and I ran into Carl Leguia'S. He's been a good friend and an inspiration of mine for a long time. This is an OG gangster that's been riding 500s longer than anybody in New England, bar none, hands down. He never gave up, never lost the faith, never went to the dark side, to the four-stroke. He's been faithful.
I rode a 450 Honda when they first came out, and honestly, it was like living in slow motion. I'm like, this is no fun.
And what was your first year on the 500s, Carl?
Well, first year was 80 that I owned one myself, end of 86.
1986.
And who was out there with me? You.
Yeah, we were out there banging bars.
All I ever saw was the backside of you.
Yeah, I remember I was winning. I was winning quite a few races. I won like 9 out of 11 the last motos right before we turned expert. And you came up and you're like, I'm going to kick your ass. I'm going to beat you.
I said that.
And I was like, no way. 3 or 4 years later, yep,
That's
you got me.
Purely out of ignorance.
I was motivated.
I'd have to wait till you pull off the track.
Yeah, no, but
I could never see you till I got my own 500, and all of a sudden you were right there, and Russ
Stetson, yep.
Another animal on a 500. He had a Cowie.
Yeah, he could ride.
Oh
back in the day.
That was like machine gun style.
Your first 86.
87. It was the end of 86. I bought a brand new 87. I didn't even know what it looked like.
It never looked back,
Went
right?
down to the dealership in the middle of the week. It was like going to factory Honda. The thing was the trickiest thing I'd ever seen.
Now, Carl and I have stayed in touch ever since there was a period after we both stopped riding a lot. Where I got back into riding. I was riding the 4-strokes, unfortunately. One of the biggest mistakes I ever made, I think, was switching to a 4-stroke. And I was taking Junior and his little sister racing. And Carl, every time I ran into him, he still had the CR500, and he had switched to an AF. I think you were the first rider in New England to get an AF too, right?
I built one. I built one in the 2000 chassis, CR250, and I loved it. From the minute that thing fired up, I was in love. I mean, the front wheel never touched the ground. Bike never did me any wrong. I loved it. It's the motor I wanted. It was some great handling, a modern chassis like I still wanted.
This AF is bristling with trickery, and Carl's got this thing set up to rip. How many AFs have you had?
I had 2 of these, identical setup. This is an 02 service Honda from AJ.
So for years, I would call Carl, I'd be talking to him, run into him, and I'm like, Carl, I got to get an AF. I got to get a 500. He goes, you will. You got to get one eventually. And I got my first one some time ago, but you were my inspiration to get back into the 500s, which you were the spark that lit a fire with my family and everybody.
You remember we were talking about that Liger 600 kit and all that stuff?
Yeah.
But that's like so far away from just being you can put one of these together, and if it can run right. If it runs right, you're having a great time. Liger, I don't think those bikes, that engine doesn't fit without a lot of mods. It's a much bigger jug.
My friend Johnny Letty has one. It has 92 horsepower, which I think would be a little bit of a handful here at Southwick.
Well, this is a 491. This is the stock bore with an aluminum sleeve. I wanted to keep the sleeve as thick as I could.
Yep.
Because it's aluminum sleeve with a Nickel. I got tired of, every time you went in there, you'd have to go next over, and before you know it, you're buying a new cylinder. And when you like a cylinder and it runs right, I didn't want to go through that again. I have to work up a new cylinder. So
when did you buy this 02?
I bought this brand new in probably the summer of 02.
So you've had this bike 20 years.
Well, is it 19?
Coming up on 20 years. The 22s are coming out, right? I mean, it's April, right?
By June or whatever.
Yeah, they're coming out in June.
I've loved it. It didn't quite run like my first 2 that I built. I built one in a 2000 chassis, another one with a 2001 chassis.
Yeah.
Those bikes were complete animals. And so when I bought this right from Service Honda, it wasn't, it's just completely stock, but I thought it would be fairly, it's just very mellow compared to what I was riding. So
I saw you riding a Supercross race. God, it had to be in the early 2000s on this bike, and it was mostly 250s. You're the only guy in a 500, and you're launching all the triples. You're hitting everything without even revving the bike out. You're just like at 4.
Well, it's got so much torque. You can use that torque. You don't have to hit like peak power like you do on a 250 to clear stuff.
Yep.
But then again, a 500 can be a handful sometimes. But there was a whoop section at Winchester Speed Park, and I saw Josh Clark wheeling the whole thing in his Honda 450. And damned if I wasn't wheeling it half the time, through the whole thing in 4th gear. Whoop, 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 whoop.
That's awesome.
So
about this bike here, this came from AJ, the godfather, the guru of the guy who really kept the CR500 aluminum frame concept to the masses and made them available to the public from a factory approved upgrade. He owns the AF insignia. He has it copyrighted. He was certified by Honda to do these, and in fact, like I said, Carl's a jumper. He came out. He didn't ride for a couple years. He's coming on track, huck all the triples and everything. That even though I've been riding all the time.
I took 9 years off, and my first race back was at Winchester Speed Park Supercross, of course. And I was attempting a quad. Hadn't done it yet, but it was like 4 peak jumps, and everybody was doing double, and I saw a couple experts doing quad nothing. So I'm like, okay, I'll do that. I hit it in third, and when I landed, the frame broke. So
you had
it was in the mail Monday, and AJ was like, I'll take care of it. The frame came back, same VIN number, beautiful. Anyways, so that bike was 10 years old.
Think about that. Here's a pro rider doing Supercross who's crashed this bike quite a few times and encased some jumps and over jumped. You were hitting everything on every track I saw you ride on. You were hitting everything. And the frame breaks after 10 years of use. If you called Honda, they'd be like, "Scram, kid! You got a 6 month."
They don't even carry parts for a bike 10 years old.
Yeah, and AJ fixed it for free, was when I was sold on AJ Wagner's service. I was like, "Wow, here's a pro rider who really used the bike the way it's supposed to be, and was hitting huge jumps, and had a issue, and he fixed it under warranty, which is there really is at that point. 10 years later, there is no warranty.
It's just
it's his name.
His name.
That's a quality service you're not going to get anywhere in the industry, really.
No.
So Carl, you've had almost 20 years to dial this into your taste, and let's start at the front of the bike because there's so much.
It's finally perfect.
Yeah, no kidding. I think.
Right.
We'll start at the front because there's so much to talk about. The triple clamps. Who did these triple clamps?
Well, this company TSR, I think they're gone, but they made these billet clamps for me. I had them done 18 millimeter offset because I knew it would turn tighter.
Now explain that to the masses here so they understand.
Well, the offset, the steering head is here, and the center line of the fork tubes is here. So the more offset you have, the more it's like a desert bike. It's more stable, but it's harder to turn. So a less offset, and it's in millimeters. It just brings those two things together. The forks and the steering stem come close together. The bike turns sharper. And I was willing, because on the 500, I wanted to set up the forks stiffer so that when I crush into stuff, I'm not bottoming the forks and kind of, it's trouble. So if I could set up the forks a little stiffer, but it could still corner, that was my theory. I mean, I've liked them. They're solid mounted.
Guys, if you want to see Carl on the bike, he was out there. In one of the videos, and
survival mode.
Yeah. So first ride at Southwick for the season. We'll have him start the bike up at the end of the video because I know you're going to be pissed if we don't hear it run. But back to the triple clamps. 18. Yeah. What is the stock offset?
Stock was, I believe, 24 maybe.
And you went all the way to 18?
Yeah, everyone was going like 20, and I'm like, this is like a Spinal Tap. I wanted to turn it up to 11.
So what did that do for your cornering?
It's sharp. I mean, you can come flying into a first turn, sitting on the gas cap, even though it's a 500, and there's nothing you can't do. There's nothing you can't.
A turn at a time.
There's nothing too tight for you.
So the triple clamps and the forks, these are
borrowed
completely pimped out.
These are borrowed from Bob Doyle. He's insisted I take these and throw them on the 500.
What'd you think?
They're smooth. They're pretty smooth.
What year are they and what model are they?
They're Kayaba. I'm not sure, but I believe they're Honda forks. They get the Honda lugs on the bottom.
And they're DLC coated.
They came from Technical Touch in Europe somewhere. And
so it's like a European A-kit, basically.
He stopped riding. Bob Doyle went off and raced Porsche race cars. He won at 24 hours of Sebring or something. I mean, he's unbelievable. He went off from vet motocross when he was on 450s, Hondas. That's why he still had these, and they fit. So
they look the business, man. I love the gold on there. It really pops. The DLC coating.
Well, the braking bumps out here are like, it's like hitting a curb.
Pretty brutal. Speaking of brakes, you've done some mods to the front brakes here, haven't you?
It's just a bigger rotor. I can't remember.
It looks like a 270 to me, probably,
yeah,
right?
It's a 270. It might be Galfer.
Yep, Galfer. And so when you put the larger rotor on, it gives you better braking. And you also got to put an adapter to bring the caliper back a little bit, right? I can see this.
Yeah, they give you a different caliper hanger.
Yep.
So I bought a couple because I got 2 sets of wheels for this thing.
So this frame on this bike, How many hours does it have on it? Because you replaced it a few years back, right?
I don't know. I was burning about 5 gallons of race gas a year, so
Maybe. So how many gallons is
10
that?
years, that's 45, 50 gallons
Okay.
at most. So
Let's talk about the motor. What year is the motor?
it's an '01 motor. That's
01.
how he was building these. You used to be able to buy a crate motor from Honda. When I first got the idea to build one of these, the last crate motors were just gone.
Yep.
This was like in 2000.
Yep.
So I ran out and I found somebody's, it's like another barn find, a 1990 CR500, which was a great motor, low hour bike. And, you know, scavenged the motor and put it in the 250 I had. So this is an '01 motor. The biggest difference
Made
is
out of brand new components. There's no,
yeah, it's all brand new. And
By
the reason
AJ.
I even did this is because I wanted to ride these into the future.
and you did. 20
Yeah,
years. Here we are,
well,
20 years later, and you're still sending
My
it.
other bike would have lasted, actually, with the amount of riding I do. It's not
Yeah.
as much as I would like, but you know, I just was so sure I was not going to be checking valves and rebuilding a 4-stroke in my garage. I just couldn't picture that happening. But
So-
you know, a top end is something you can do in 2 hours.
So it's a 491. You sent the cylinder out. Who did your cylinder?
I believe it was Millennium.
William. They plated it.
Yeah, they plated it. Eric Gore cleaned up all the ports for me.
So it's got
Did his
Eric
porting.
Gore porting,
Yeah.
Millennium plating, and it's a 491 Honda cylinder.
Right.
And the
right.
crank is an OEM Honda, right?
It's an OEM crank, but my old motor guy he bored enormous holes in the heaviest parts of both crank halves,
Oh wow,
and then covered the holes with a little thin sheet of chromoly.
wow.
So the holes, I believe, were 1.25 inches.
Wow.
So it just took a ton of weight out of it because I was in his shop holding a 250 crank, which felt like it's made out of aluminum, and the 500 crank, it felt like you're holding a Harley crank. And I'm like, you know, the stroke on a 250 was 72 millimeters, and it's 79 on a 500. I'm like, why is this so heavy? I'd love to try out something lighter. And it did everything I wanted. It made the bike snappy, it revs quick, the revs go up and down quickly.
Did he
know?
balance the crank too?
He trued it.
Trued, so it's
You know?
trued, enlightened,
I
and
don't
it's
know.
OEM Honda, which is one of the
OEM
better
Honda.
cranks. Yeah,
So he took the tin apart and put it back together and
Yep.
everything. So
awesome.
But
How
I've
about the
liked
clutch
that.
and tranny? Is the clutch and tranny stock?
Stock clutch,
Yeah.
still on the stock clutch from brand new.
You're kidding me. That has the
Yeah.
original clutch.
Yeah, and I just
That-
put a new cable on just for the hell of it.
That's a
Got the
testimony
original-
to the Honda quality,
Well,
isn't
like
it?
I know guys with brand new Huskies that their hydraulic clutch is all acting up.
Junk, yeah.
You know, and then they're replacing slave cylinders and all this and that. The clutch cable's what, $15?
What about the carbon intake on it? What have you done to the carbon intake?
Oh, so it's got a V-Force 2 with an Adam Millar reed spacer.
That puts you a couple of horsepower to the rear wheel, doesn't
Yeah.
it? I've heard.
That's the way to do it because it actually the V-Force 2 goes too far into the cylinder and you don't have the flow going to the transfer ports the way it should. So to space it back a little bit, plus it's a really well built thing that then connects, you know, seals everything really well because I actually was running extra spacer plates before Adam came along. But now it actually pushes the carb so that it's a perfect fit to the air boot, to the airbox.
So it's an Adam Millar reed cage
It's a reed block.
Reed block?
And you just put a V-Force 2 to it.
with the V-Force 2.
Yeah,
Yep.
he production makes these in aluminum.
We just bought 2 of them for Junior's bikes.
Yeah, this thing's made out of titanium, and so
Wow, it's titanium.
yeah, for whatever, you know, I was like, I'll take it. So
The carb, is that an air striker?
that's a regular air striker right out of off the shelf for a Honda, you know.
Did you have to change the jetting with all other mods?
I've changed stuff, but I've kind of gone back. I mean, if you throw an off the shelf air striker with jetting for a CR250, throw it right onto a 500, it's going to run great. You know, you may have to just fine tune your main jet, but Adam has all this extra stuff he's doing, but honestly, I don't have the patience and the time to do a lot of testing. I just don't, so I'm just back to my regular
You got it
air-
dialed in the way you like it.
But the first AF I made had a 2000 air striker, and it ran like an 8. The bike would try and loop out at the end of straightaways.
This is
So-
what year is this air striker?
well, this is
01 air
just a
striker?
couple years. No, 2000 was the year.
Yep.
And anything before that was a different carb.
Okay, so
So
yeah,
it's only a 2000 CR250 38 millimeter carb. It comes. I just ordered another one for one of my other bikes.
we'll get into
so-
that later. He's got a brand new CR250 in the trail I got to show you guys. What about the radiators?
Those are just modified by AJ. And he has to mostly do the right side, I believe.
Now, here's a pro rider here that for 20 years, that radiator straight as an arrow. You haven't smashed this thing
That's
up.
the original radiator.
If it was a novice rider, it'd be bent up like a pretzel.
I don't know. I did crash here once, but I think the bike flipped and the seat landed on me, so it saved the bike from getting damaged.
Good thing.
So there's no damage on the bike, but I was all broken.
You can see the service Honda insignia on the frame bottom here. Now, guys, if you don't already know, this is a billet. This is solid aluminum, whereas on the original steel frame ones are hollow. So aluminum's lighter, so if a steel frame was solid, it weighed way too much. This is lighter, even though it's a billet and it's solid, and it's they don't get crushed like a Steely does. The Steely's flatten out because there's nothing inside of it. They're hollow.
Right.
So
no frame damage.
OEM 2001 Honda cases. Is that an MSV exhaust port on there?
It is. I put one of those on. It seals no more spooch. And it's supposed to give you another horsepower.
Yep. So you got really pretty much the whole kit. You've got the what filter do you run?
Twin air.
Twin air filter, K&N Airstream Striker with the Adam Millar reed block with the V-Force Engineering reed valves, jetted for this setup, a plated OEM 491 CM cylinder.
But it's aluminum sleeve.
Aluminum. Oh, you sleeved it? You changed the sleeve
because
too?
I like that jug. I didn't want to get rid of it. It really ran nice, so I wanted to save it. So.
And Eric Gore did your porting, right?
Gore did the porting.
MSV exhaust. Pretty much, if you copy this, guys, you'll have a kick-ass setup. Now the pipe, do they even still make these anymore?
They do. It's almost like a DIY kit. You have to weld on or braze on some of the mounts.
That's a Scalvini cone pipe.
Scalvini, yeah.
This is a factory pipe from back in the day.
I wanted to try a shorter silencer version of this, but it runs so good now, I can't complain. If I complain, I'm insane.
Is there anything else you want to say about the motor? Is there any electrical mods or anything?
Oh yeah, I've got 2 pickup coils on the stator plate. It doubles your spark energy, so it really makes a difference in starting.
How does somebody get one of those? Do they sell those now?
Ricky Stater's a little place that for $60-something you buy a second pickup coil.
Yeah.
And there's actually a place right on your stator plate that holes aren't drilled and tapped, but you could mount another identical pickup coil to that. And then actually, if you cut the wires at the right place, you run the wires in circuit. If you can figure out what the wiring's doing, you run it right in circuit, and it doubles the spark energy. So, and you have to check your plug cap to your wire that goes to your coil. This can get loose. It got loose on me just from age.
Yep.
And I was getting an intermittent kind of weak spark. When it's running, it was running, but it was hard to start. So,
excellent. So that does that help it? That helps it start. Yeah, the second pickup coil.
And it helps it run really good at low RPMs.
But the ignition is original.
I tried a service Honda digital ignition.
Yep.
Back, I want to say in when was that? 2010 maybe.
Yep.
And I ran it for 4 or 5 years, but eventually I just had too much trouble starting the bike.
Yep.
Once it was running, it really ran smooth, and you could exit a flat corner slippery with a little power slide. It was not a big deal. I don't mind the switch back to explosive power because I like that too, but it was too hard to start. I had to.
So with this, so it's a stock ignition plate with a second pickup coil. That's what we have done in mine, and it made it a lot easier to kick start.
Yeah, I mean, a Kickstarter spins the motor over barely, 1 RPM, so you're lucky to really light the thing up. Yeah,
and I don't even need a compression release on mine with that second coil. It starts so easy.
I had a head from Adam. Adam's the most wonderful guy in the world, but I didn't like how it kicked with the decomp valve.
Yep.
And I have just as much luck starting it with. It's just harder.
After 35 years of experience, it's a piece of cake.
I dread the starting thing though, but that's why I'm thinking I'm going to go to a 250 at some point. It's just easier to start.
So the 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010s, you're going into your. It's 35 years, but you've been 37 years. You've been riding 500s, but that's in 5 decades. The 80s, the 90s, the 2000s, 2010. You're coming into the new millennium and everything.
Well, I counted last year. I counted that I had 26 seasons of only riding 500s, and I rode a couple years in the expert class on a 500 when nobody was doing it because you were stupid if you're doing that. The forks would beat you to death back on those steel frame bikes.
These are a big improvement,
it's
I'm
so
sure.
plush. It's nice. This is a great handling bike.
So the frame was it a 2-stroke 250 frame
Yes.
originally? Yep.
And I like that because I hate 4-strokes so much. I would collect
You don't even
them
want it to
all
ever
up.
have had a motor.
I'd collect them all up and push them into a landfill, covered up, and I would have a party. I'd have a pig roast, a barbecue. I'd have vegan food. I'd have everything. I want so nothing to do with, and I love like an XR, an old Honda XR. It's a great bike. I got one for my daughter. But this is what bikes were when you could seize a 125 in practice and you'd be ready for your moto in about 40 minutes because it's that easy to work on. And now when guys would blow up a 450, you wouldn't see that bike. And this is an expert. You wouldn't see that bike for a couple of months.
Guys, if you
don't get it.
It's true. If you want to buy one of these, Service Honda went out of business in 2016. However, the godfather, the guru, AJ Wagoner, started it. The original companies had it all along for like 40 years. It's called built500.com. Go to BUILT500.com. AJ will hook you up. If you want the engine mods that Carl has here, go to Millar Race Engineering, MRE, right? And
Adam Millar. If you want to if you can take a stock motor, go to Adam. Like, my motor has so much stuff going on that I'd love to just start over, but you kind of can't. I don't know. I'd have to send him the whole motor, and he'd have to figure out what's going on.
I think the proof in the pudding is the fact that AJ recommends Adam, and AJ he has Adam do his stuff. And I know Eric Gore is awesome, and there's some other good guys.
There's people that are like, oh, Adam Millar doesn't know anything, and it's like he's forgotten more than I know. I mean, you're going to find that in any business. There's going to be someone that says, oh, I bought something from that guy and it didn't work out or whatever, but there's those people everywhere. But I know Adam, super helpful, super nice. You can always catch him on the phone. I was talking to him when they were testing his bike at Glen Helen. Talking to him on the phone while his bike's ripping up and down the hills there. It was so funny.
Guys, there's some real
great guy.
unobtainium trick stuff on this bike that I haven't covered yet. Before I do, I want to show you guys the bars. These don't have a center bar like on a Renthal. Junior likes these too. He says they vibrate a little bit less. Why do you use the crossbarless bar? You've tried everything, so.
These bars actually came off one of my other AFs, so they date back to like 2001.
You've had them for 20 years. Yeah.
They're straight.
They can take a beating, huh?
Yeah, and these are solid mounted because I don't like the rubber mounts will twist even in a bump section.
Yep.
All of a sudden your bars are like this and you're like, come on, man.
This is rigid mount.
So this always stays the same. These work great, but it's a strange setup. It's got one long bolt right through this, and if you snap a bolt, you'll never find one at the track. You've got to have a few spares. So.
The one thing that jumps off on this bike to me, other than the bling of the gold forks, and the fact that it's an AF 500 already, but the swing arm on this thing is absolute factory trickery right here. This is not something you're going to see on pretty much any other AF unless they went the route that Carl went here. Tell us a little bit about the swing arm, Carl.
Well, this must have been back in about 2014. I contacted Carl Landrus out of, I believe he's in Oregon. He's West Coast, but he's a former pro. He rode the Nationals back in, I want to say, the early 80s. And, but anyways, he went into a lot of aluminum fabrication work, and he would make a lot of Mako parts for, I think, like, I call it turn of the century, 1980s, the turn of the century in the motocross world, but like those Makos back of that era before they went to plastic tanks. So he'd make airboxes and tanks and swing arms. He'd make these trick swing arms. So this goes right back to the last era of works bikes. So it's very similar to that, but I actually talked to David Bailey and I asked him what he wanted. If he was going to design a swing arm for the 500, what would he do? So this was his specs, and it's 1 inch longer than stock.
It's pretty dramatic difference, right? You pulled your forks back a bunch, like 6 millimeters, and then you got an extra inch back here, so it kind of made it turn better. Yet you have some stability because of the longer wheelbase.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are these still available to the public, these swing arms, or is this an unobtainium piece?
I think he's building them again, but his whole house burned down in a wildfire, and he lost all of his molds and his entire shop, but he's rebuilt, so I believe he's making them again. There's Bormy Parts, a guy in Europe makes
I've seen his stuff.
This,
yeah.
And there's maybe one other source for this type of stuff, but Anyways,
What'd you do to the shock on this? Is this a factory connection revalve?
It's just a factory connection revalve with a stiffer spring. So
on the original 250 shock.
Look how little wear is on that reservoir. Is that crazy?
Yep, you have not abused this thing. You've ridden it, but you haven't abused it. What do you recommend for gearing on the 500? And are you a third gear start guy or a second gear start guy?
I was running a 53 in the back for the longest time, and we had David Bailey come out here in 03 to do a bunch of motocross schools, and he saw my 53 sprocket. He's like, "What are you doing with that?" So he's like, "You got to run a 51." And what's funny is this is the sprocket I went and bought right after we did one of the schools in Connecticut. I stopped at Manchester Honda in 03. That's a 51 from 03. 2003.
So you run the stock counter shaft and a 51 in the rear.
Yeah, but I've got the 90 to 92 fourth and fifth gears.
Yeah.
So it's the close ratio tranny.
Yeah.
Because 93 on up, fourth was tall, and fifth was even taller.
Did you notice a difference when you changed it?
I wouldn't even ride it with that other gearbox because
Really?
I know I want to have third and fourth close together because I do a lot of motocross in fourth.
Yeah.
If you ride in third a lot, the bike's going to try and kill you.
Yeah.
It's like having a 600-pound gorilla hyped up on a Red Bull or something.
Yeah.
Touching you. So third gear is a dangerous place to be. If you can get into fourth, bike smooths out.
Yep.
It tracks nice. Rear suspension works
when I was
nice.
talking about the Supercross, I think a lot of that track you were in fourth gear because you were in the meat of the power
Maybe
band.
so, yeah.
And you were hucking everything.
Yeah.
In third gear, it would have been revving.
Third gear, you don't know what you're gonna get. You come up to a jump face. I don't know. It's still so touchy. I used to think that second gear was the gear I wouldn't ride it because it was so touchy on the throttle.
Yep.
So I'm trying to learn to ride second sometimes, but I mean it's ridiculous. This bike just in second gear, it's like a top fuel dragster. It's just you're gonna kill yourself.
I know on every bike it's different, and every track is different with the gearing and everything, the way you set it up and your weight and riding style. But do you prefer a third gear start on the 500 or a second?
In the dirt, definitely third. Unless it's really a lot of traction, I'll try second.
Yeah. Just
so you can kind of get a launch. The 450s now are launching really good out of the hole.
Yeah.
So you got to beat those guys out of the hole. But back before this era we're in now, if I could get off the line in third anywhere and not be overtaken by guys that could get a better jump, I was just going.
Cool.
It's just third, fourth, see you later. So everybody likes that.
So before we wrap it up, I wanted to talk about your shirt here a little bit. This is a JT Racing, N1Designs.com, and on here, I know this is something near and dear to your heart. You've been friends with David Bailey for a long time. You guys actually ran a motocross school here at some time ago. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, there's a guy in Slovakia, and I just sent him a text. He's the nicest kid. He's like half my age, huge David Bailey fan. And at one point, I bought a helmet. He was trying to pick up a JT helmet. I had to buy it and then ship it to him because the seller wouldn't ship directly to Slovakia.
Yeah.
So he's a nice kid, and I've sent him some whatever I can get for swag at the races, like some of these autographed, posters from whatever team, I don't know the names of the new guys, Christian Craig and stuff, but I've sent him a little bit of swag. But he's the nicest kid. He made me a jersey.
Nice.
And nicest guy. His father rides. He's got friends that ride, and
how's Dave doing? You been in touch with him lately?
Yeah. When was it? Maybe I send him pictures when I don't have that much to say to him these days, and I've tried to get him out here for another school within the last year, and he just didn't want to do it.
That'd be kind of cool. Maybe you should just do it on your own. Do a school day.
It was really neat when he did those schools we did in 2003. It was just amazing. Just to sit back and try to listen to what he's saying. It was just, because he's, I looked at him for, what are you supposed to look like? What are you supposed to ride like? How are you supposed to?
Is a legend.
Yeah, he was so perfect on 500s, but again, so was Brock. Brock's, but David Bailey was the icon. He had the Hondas.
So tell me a little bit about this gem that you have in the trailer here, in the truck. This is the way the factory teams used to show up back in the day in a box van back in the 80s and 90s before the tractor-trailer semi era came along. I don't know where you found this thing, but this is as close to fresh out of a box as I've seen a 03 250.
It's the original tires. I'm gonna try and ride 250s now.
Original tires.
Yeah, and I'm gonna ride on them.
What kind of carb is that?
Well, the stock carb, the jetting is so atrocious. This is what I ran on the 500 for a while. It's a PSI Big Air carb. It's similar to Electron.
Yeah.
It's nothing like a regular carburetor. It's the needle fueling, just like Electron or a Smart Carb.
Yeah.
So I had this on the 500 for 14 years, but the bike at different times was just too hard to start. So I went back to something I know ran well and was just easier to start. The starting is...
Where'd you find this? This is a real freshie here. It's got the original pipe on it, original tires on it, original graphics.
Well, these are a repro graphic.
Oh, this repop?
I'm going completely red, you know. I mean, I thought I would be riding it, so I don't want to scratch anything up. It's
Junior's running the same thing you are now. He's got a CR500, but he's got the old aluminum frame 89, and he's got a new actually they're both steelies. He's got a 96 250, but he's running a 500 and a 252 stroke. You know, it's funny. I mean,
any CR250 from 86 onward, or really 87, because then you get a rear disc. Great bikes.
Yep.
You know, but obviously, if you could get stocked up for parts, if I could find parts, I'd run an 87 CR250 and 500 forever.
Yep.
But you just can't get all the parts you need to keep them going.
Yeah, that's true. Where the AF is basically the next generation, like all those stock parts will fit on it, right?
I like this, the last generation. It's a very good bike, but it was, you know, paying for this case reed motor. It didn't have a lot of low end and, you know, early mid range, but
it's easy to ride a 250 after hucking the 500, huh?
Oh God, it's like a mini bike. I should be able to start it with my hand, you know.
If you ever, we just had a dyno installed at the shop. If you ever want to come down and dyno either one of these bikes, just give me a call, man.
Yeah, I'd love it.
It'd be pretty cool to see what they're putting down.
You know what I found though? I mean, usability of your power and how crisp it is and responsive, that's like cash money. I mean, the numbers for motocross, anyways, I don't know how important the numbers are exactly, but the bike's got to be crispy, crunchy, responsive, and that air striker on a 500, oh my God, like 1 millimeter of throttle, and you get, you know, a little more. It's like so direct, your connection between that piston, your throttle hand, and how the bike's responding to you. So I'm very mindful of how the 500's running is how your day's going to go. It's not the chassis. Chassis can be great, but if that motor's sluggish and has some sort of a weird spot, I mean, you're just not. I'd rather park the bike, you know.
Carl, I want to thank you for inspiring me to get back on a 500 many moons ago after many moons off of one, and look what it's not just me. We got Junior into it. Now we got the whole next generation.
This was the original decals from AJ.
You and AJ keeping the fire alive has sparked a flame in the next generation. I mean, Junior's out riding them. A lot of young kids. We had a 14-year-old kid that came all the way from California to ride in Nevada with us because of the videos of us riding 500s. And if we weren't doing it, it might be a loss. So
I love those videos.
Thank you for keeping the flame stoked. And for every time I talk to you, like, what are you riding a 4-stroke for? That's a piece of get on the 2-stroke. And I finally switch, and I love it. I don't even want to ride a new 4-stroke. I'm not even remotely interested in getting one. You know,
the 500 doesn't have a power valve. That's one less thing to think about. And it's got this wonderful power.
You can do a top end in one afternoon by yourself, right?
Oh, it's like nothing. The problem is that steel sleeve. If you can get if you go maybe first over and your cylinder's perfect, maybe get it nickel, you know, plated, and that way you can keep that bore for a long time. Just change pistons and rings and stuff. But every time I go in there, the thing needs to go one more over. So you only have 2 oversizes. You know, and then you're looking for another jug, and when you've got a jug that runs just the way you want it, man, it's so sad that it's the end of the road for that cylinder. So I think nickel plating is the end of that, you know, dilemma. Once you do that, what a great motor. It's the greatest motor.
Carl, thank you for sharing all your wisdom and knowledge you've got over the years on the CRs. Any closing words of wisdom for the young bucks who want to get into riding the 500s, or the young kids, you know, or the old kids, the 50-plus crowd that want to get back into a 500?
I would say don't be afraid of it, and if you're not really a 500 guy yet, you got to go somewhere safe and put a lot of seat time on it. Seat time, I don't mean sitting, but like throttle and just working with the bike, and go somewhere that's sort of easy track. Because even as Bailey told me once, he said the thing will bite you. You know, you start thinking you've got it wired, and then you get tossed off like a...
So practice is what you're saying. Practice.
Yeah, so give yourself some time to work into it and really understand how the bike works, how the throttle works with it, how it handles, and you really need... we used to do a ton of play riding. We'd do hill climbing and jumps. We'd find crazy jumps and hills and all sorts of drop-offs and everything, and if you don't do that, I think that helps your ability to deal with sketchy situations. I've over-jumped stuff and nearly gone off the track, but I save it because I've done all this play riding. I used to ride with Pat Barton and Tony LaRusso. We would jump from one berm to another like they do these transfers and stuff. We were doing
just for
that
fun, yeah.
Back in the day. But I think seat time, give yourself time. Don't try to pound laps right away. Don't go to a track. Go make a track somewhere, and you carve the track in with your bike and start from there. But then again, I think some people aren't born for this. You know, you gotta be smooth and have some patience in your mind, and you want to think technique and control first, and then I crashed so little, these grips are 5 years old.
Yeah, I actually noticed these are actual OEM Honda grips here, rather than the rental. These are the factory Honda grips.
Yeah, they come in a little parts bag. What's better than that?
That's awesome.
Oh, I do have a...
Is that a billet throttle tube?
Yeah, it's a throttle tube with the bearing at the end. It's
like
so
the factory
smooth.
tubes run those, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, is it really necessary? No, but it's very smooth.
I think I got to mention the boots too. Where do you get the old school high point, badass, vintage style boots? Those are new, but are they reproductions or are they?
I think they made a whole nother batch, a ton of them back in like 2012. And
Are they still
out?
They're still available?
Yeah, a place on the internet, Chrome Burner, carries them, but you got to look at what sizes are available.
Yep.
And I've gone to eBay.
Hey, I'm not going to put this video up until I call and see if they have a 12 left. I want to buy, because all my boys on YouTube are going to buy them all.
But I've got 3 pair of these. I'm never going to wear another boot.
I'll buy it in a New York second.
Hey, if I can kickstart this in these boots.
Yeah, those are just badass. I ride a lot of vintage bikes, and that looks a lot better. If you're on a 77 RM250 or any of the old vintage bikes, the new boots look a little out of place.
You have so much feel in your brake pedal and your shifter, but especially the brake pedal.
Yep.
I mean, and you can bend at the ankle.
That's the Scalvini logo right there. That's the real deal. Carl, thanks for keeping the fire alive here. I love you like a brother. Keep up the good work and send it this year. I'm looking forward to seeing you out there banging some hole shots like the good old days. Stay safe. Thanks for watching, everybody, and God bless the United States of America. Tail wagging the 500. Only the 500 does that. That's awesome. I'll be just happy when it does that. Third gear hole shot now. You got to send Carl a sticker. This said MRE right there. Awesome. Thanks for reminding me that we need to let the guys here run too. Let it eat.
Oh, it's so fast. It's so good.
Hey, well, everybody, happy Easter. Happy Easter to you, Carl. And I look forward to seeing you at the track this summer. Keep the shiny side up, brother. God bless. And so another season begins here at Southwick Motocross 338. It's awesome seeing my old friends like Carl here year after year and Still sending it on the big CR500. Proof you do not need to buy a new bike every year. Find something you like and stick with it. Keep it fun. Keep it real and get out there and ride. And if you can find someone else to inspire to ride, a neighborhood kid, your own kids, somebody needs to step up to get into riding, bring them here to Southwick. Bring them to the motocross school on Wednesday. Camp out here. Spend some time doing what you love to do with the people you love the most, your friends and family. That's what it's all about, my friends, is the American dream, in my opinion. Because you can work every day till your eyes are bloodshot, but you can't take it with you. And what you're going to remember on your deathbed is, Dad, you're never going to wish you worked more, or you can't take the money with you. So get out there and do what you love to do. Factory Connection rig is here, setting up suspension. FC Mike has been coming here since, I think, the 70s, and has been tuning suspension for Factory Connection for decades. I'm definitely going to do an interview with him at some point. Really a guy that dedicated his whole life to this industry. Angelo Santinello, another die-hard vet rider. What's going on, my brother?
How you doing, man?
What are you riding this year?
YZ125 and 252 stroke.
Awesome. We gonna see you here tomorrow?
Yes, I'll be here. You?
Of course, yeah, I'll be here with Junior.
Yep.
So you got a 125 and a 250?
Yep.
I remember a few years back you broke out an old Air Hammer YZ490.
Yes.
And you're sending it in the Expert Pro vet class.
Yes.
So I see you've modernized your gear a little bit. You got the brand new ones.
Yeah.
A little easier to ride that than the old Air Hammer. Do you still have the old Air Hammer?
No, I sold everything. All my 500s, I sold them all.
What was the first year you came to Southwick?
I've been racing up in New England since 1990.
1990, so 30 years.
Yeah.
31 years.
Yeah, this is my 31st year in New England.
Awesome.
I'm not a New Englander.
You come up from
Long Island.
Long Island.
Yep.
Well, it's good to see you here every year.
Good seeing you.
And we'll be here at Easter, sending it just as usual.
Yeah, Jenny.
All right, brother.
Yep.
Take care. 30-something years, Angelo's been coming. It's dedication. Stay tuned. We'll be back for the races tomorrow. Should be a great day.